Thank you so much, Carl. Time now to focus on the family. And I have no doubt that you have a perspective on what we're about to talk about because we've all lived through the human condition. Now, numerous studies have found that parental separation and divorce is associated with a range of negative outcomes, especially for younger children in that developmental phase and even for adolescents. So today's panel discussion is based on the upcoming release of what looks like a very emotive movie playing in this space titled The Son, starring Hugh Jackman and Anthony Hopkins. Perfect custodians for this kind of narrative. And the drama follows a family as it struggles to reunite after falling apart. Let's set the scene.
Nicholas hasn't been to school in almost a month.
I wanted to ask, how are you? Has something happened? You realize the school is talking about expelling you.
Can I live with you? You said you don't feel very close to people your age.
Your other son, he needs you as well.
And you're at work all of the time. Has he been able to talk about the divorce?
I've tried to be there for you. I've tried to give you strength. What's going on? Are you on drugs? You think you can just live your life doing whatever you feel like?
I don't know what's happening to me.
I feel like a complete failure.
I wasn't there for him.
There used to be so much joy in our family.
You give these big speeches about life, and then you abandon us.
I have the right to reinvent my life!
Hello, son. You came to tell me what a good dad you are? What do you want? Applause?
It's my little boy. I can't give up on him.
I think that's a little too close to home for a lot of people watching right now, and I want you to hold on to that connection because we are joined by an amazing panel of experts to help us understand what we have just seen and how we can apply that in our lives right now, hopefully for you. So please welcome registered counsellor Dr. Marianne Gush and clinical psychologist Slindile Mbata. I feel like we need about a 10-minute hiatus just to absorb what we've seen. Terrifying when you see art echoing life in that way. Almost doesn't look like art anymore. On every level, something resonated there with me. I'm thinking about my own childhood. I'm thinking about my future with my own son, my daughter as well, but in particular, my son, because that's the connection I have in terms of what I need to leave with him. I'm the anchor. I'm the security in my family. What happens when you take that away? When that foundation is removed and nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows quite how this is going to work out. We're probably all acting out because we're in pain, we're going through trauma. How do we approach this as a parent when looking to protect our child? Even if it's just triage in that moment so that we don't deal with this 20 years down the line. Marianne, do you want to save the world for us with this first one? How do we take that first step? Because I think this is a duality of couples having to step out of their own drama and also help their children. Where do we approach this from?
Absolutely. And I actually think as parents, the process of making your child a resilient human being starts long before trouble sets in.
Yeah.
So teaching your child how to express emotions appropriately, modeling good emotional behaviors and relationships from an early age, those are all important things to get in place before something hits the fan.
Sure, okay.
But once it hits the fan, I think the most important thing is to ensure your child is secure in the parent-child relationship. That is the greatest protective factor when it comes to shielding a child from such trauma.
Often we don't notice. I mean, we live in quite a, I use the term woke society now, where we are a lot more aware of these emotional triggers or disturbances in that. What are some of the signs that our younger children who can't articulate in the way that we need to might be going through those sorts of moments, being affected in that way, because that's often what we need to drive this home, when a parent can see that their child is struggling. So what are those warning signs?
Yeah, well, it depends on the child as well. So sometimes, you know, you need to take into account what is the usual temperament of the child. So sometimes what we'll find is that children who are more withdrawn, they can start to act out. And sometimes you find that a child who's been really happy and, you know, a sort of happy-go-lucky child starts to kind of, you know, withdraw a little bit more into themselves. So it's such a destabilizing thing when a family separates, and you need to really pay attention to what happens to the mood of the child. Sometimes there's changes in eating patterns, you know, but it really looks like a child processing a loss. So there's somewhat of a grieving process that does happen, and it doesn't matter how young the child is, they do feel that impact. So definitely the changes in mood, a lot of anxiety symptoms, and also just paying attention to usual behavior starting to look very, very different from the norm.
And if just taking that second to shift focus, you'll often see that. I want to talk about the language in just a moment that we need to use with our children, but please, we want to hear from you as well. How do you resolve conflict in your family? 063-408-8863. Please, if you've got some insight that can help us right now, drop us a voice note. We'll continue in a moment.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for rejoining what is proving to be a very rewarding conversation right now, especially if you're a family going through this. Family separation, we know, can be massive, and we brought in the experts to discuss family separation and the negative effects thereof. This is ahead of the release of the movie The Son, and of course we've got clinical psychologists Lindile Mbata and Marianne Gash here to discuss the sensitive topics. Marianne, I left that conundrum with you, the language. We forget the children have the emotions that they don't get when they're older. They already exist. Now they've got to navigate them without a rule book or toolkit. How do we help them build that toolkit? When discussing something like this, what is the language we use, especially with younger children?
Yeah, it's so important because one could say there's no hard and fast rule for 5-year-olds. This is the language you use, or for a teenager, this is the language, because every child is different. So firstly, consider your child's own development, their own personality, where they're at, what else is going on in their lives before starting the discussion. But I think it's also good to preempt the child's fear. And the greatest fear for a child when parents separate is, what if it's about me? Am I being neglected, or am I being abandoned? So addressing that in the way you talk about it is so important. So for example, something like, we as partners, we've decided we're not happiest together anymore, but the love we have for you as our child will never change, and as a constant, and we are both still your parents.
Yeah, and you are the most important cog in this machine.
Absolutely.
It's crazy that we look back, and I suppose you get to my ripe old age, and you start to see these patterns as they play out, which makes these hugely rewarding. So thank you so much for whatever therapy is going on in this space. But I can now look back and see where there were gaps. Missing a father figure, and I think a big focus on this, and where we left that chief antagonist, Nicholas, you could see him grappling with those issues later on in life. Slee, what are the signs? Because I was lucky to have beautiful male figures in my life, but there were still gaps in that space. Now that I'm starting to understand, what are those signs that you might need to fill that gap? What can we look out for in the development of a child that's missing a father or mother figure, for that matter?
Yeah, well, you know, I think, again, as Marianne was saying, a lot of things need to be taken into consideration when you look at specifically your child. You will know what your child is like. So it's very important to sort of think about what your child is interested in, what it is that they like doing, and how they are also interacting with other children, or even other people in the family. How are they building certain relationships? So when you start to see certain difficulties emerge in certain relationships, sometimes they might have difficulties making friends, relating to peers. And that's because they might have missed some of these essential things in building a relationship. I think we saw in the movie where they were talking about how that young boy was struggling with his peers and making friends.
And because building a relationship relationship as a guy with other guys and as a girl with other girls, two completely different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we need to look out for that, and we need to think about how it's manifesting.
I love that. So we are putting it to you guys, and I'm just trying to process now of what angle to approach this from the parent's perspective who is caught in this. How do we stop our own behavior so that we can be fully conscious of our children? If you have that answer, please phone us right now. Drop us a voice note if you've got anything to weigh in on. 063-408-8863. We are talking about family conflict, in particular divorce, and how to protect and shield and hopefully empower our children through that process.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to our panel discussion regarding family separation ahead of the release of what looks like the most emotional roller coaster, The Sun, in cinemas tomorrow. Deciding to divorce or separate is a very difficult decision and journey for parents, but even more so for children. And registered counsellor Dr. Marianne Gash and clinical psychologist Slindile Mbata are still with us to wrap up the discussion, but we've got someone who has sent through a voice note. This is anonymous. Let's hear what they've got to say.
Good morning, Expresso. I resolved my conflict with my family by teaching them the rules, no swearing, and respect each other in the house. And we pray together as a family. That's how I resolved conflict.
Okay, I love that. Essentially, play together as a family, connect. I mean, we've made it our pray together as a family. Faith, what are those common threads that transcend the situational drama? Marianne, this is the journey of a boy, and obviously that's something I can relate to. In this space, especially those developmental years, how different is the experience of a boy and a girl, and how should we be approaching that in this triage phase, you know, in the heat of the fire?
One does not want to generalize,
Yeah.
but I think both experience the whole separation and divorce the same way. However, the way we socialize and teach
How it manifests is different.
our males and females does mean that how it manifests is different, exactly.
Okay.
So in boys, what's very often overlooked is anger or outbursts, moodiness, and boys are often, unfortunately, disciplined or say they're being naughty or they're being difficult.
They're just
Where
stuck
that's
to it.
actually just an expression of what they're going through. With girls, it tends to be easier, not because girls are easy, but because we tend to allow girls more time to express how they're feeling. And we encourage them to share what they're going through.
They have more tools and as a result look more mature, so we'll have that conversation earlier, so I can see how that can knock on. So we are talking about The Sun as a movie, as a beautiful, it looks like striking way of explaining this narrative, but I think where this is going to hit home is you're seeing it, and all of us teared up, let's be honest, that almost broke me just watching the trailer, so it's going to take a while for me to get through this film, I think. But hopefully that's going to spark people, if they might be too close to the problem in their own home, to see what effect this could have on their child. How do we make this less stressful when we ourselves are reaching?
Yeah.
How do we do that for our kids?
Yeah. I think, Graham, the important thing is, you know, sometimes we really need to, as parents, preempt, you know, some of the damage that can happen and see how do you start to mitigate that. And most importantly, start to have conversations. Start to have really tough conversations with your kids about how they're feeling, what they're going through.
About what you're going
About
through.
what you are going through. You know, the fact that you are, as a family, you are struggling, things are changing. How are they processing that? So I think a lot of this is you don't want to wait until the damage is done and you can see it. If you can, start to have those conversations, notice changes that are happening even, you know, with your kids.
Ask for their advice.
Ask, absolutely. You know, so it's very, very important to try and understand and engage with your kids about the experiences that they are having, about the perspective that they have, and really understand, as you were saying, that they are emotional beings from very, very young.
They start with all the emotions, and then they've got to try and figure out how to use them.
And you're not doing damage by asking those questions. It actually does a lot more good to have the conversation than to avoid it, you know, hoping that you're protecting them by keeping quiet.
I suppose it's a form of denial. I suppose we all live in that space to some degree. I'm going to ask you for some final advice here because I'm struggling in my own mind because this does become a deeply personal journey for everyone, for every family. We know that we can repair relationships, so don't think for a second that it's too late for anybody. We can all heal, we can all repair, but I really love this notion of preempting those sorts of moments. That being said, someone who is going through a divorce right now, maybe just seeing or taking cognizance of their child's perspective is a way for themselves to gain perspective. What advice do you have for the parents, for them to strengthen themselves, to become more conscious when you are in the heat of battle, because it's rough?
That's such an important question because we often lose sight of the larger perspective when we're in the midst of the battle, which it often turns into. So it's important to look after yourself and your own needs, make sure you have the support that is going to see you through this, but also realize that you are your child's main support. And how they get through this and navigate it depends almost entirely on you. So prioritize what is in the best interest of your child above and beyond your emotional and immediate needs in conflict in the home, because you want to protect your child.
It's a governor that can save you, save your relationship, because you are co-parenting beyond this point. You need a powerful relationship, but there is an opportunity to learn, to teach your children, to deal with conflict, to resolve, to have resilience, to have patience. This is what life requires when they are adults. So don't see this as the worst thing that's happening to them, but an opportunity for all of you to transcend and move forward with your lives. Just behave. Behave yourself. You're a grown-up. Look after your children, please, and nothing but love.